It is Health Diary. My name is Gladys Gachanja and we're coming to you from the Park Inn by Radisson here in Westlands. Now, one of the most associated mental health conditions with death by suicide is bipolar disorder. Now, those who live with this condition have to deal with erratic mood swings which are not easily understood by those around them, leaving them feeling helpless. Now, the good news is if they get proper diagnosis and timely treatment, those living with bipolar disorder can live a fruitful and fulfilling life. So today we talk more about this condition and see how much more we can do to support them in this journey. Before we get to it, here now is a fact of the matter. Bipolar is a mental health condition that causes extreme mood swings that include emotional highs, mania, and lows, depression. Manic episodes may include symptoms such as high energy, reduced need for sleep, and loss of touch with reality. Depressive episodes are often characterized by low energy, low motivation, and loss of interest in daily activities. Treatment for bipolar is lifelong and often involves a combination of medications and psychotherapy.
My name is Ian Ekesa. The diagnosis came late because I was just walking around home. I met a doctor friend of mine. She called me to and just told me, I think there's something wrong with you. She referred me to a clinic in Kangemi. When I went there, that's where I was diagnosed with bipolar. I didn't understand it fully, because it was something new to me. I had already gotten a gist of mental illnesses because I'm a survivor of depression. There was a time I was admitted at Chiromoland Medical Clinic. My mom took me there at the time where my voice was really loud. She took me there so that they can handle it. She told me that they told me that I exhibit signs of depression, of bipolar. They just gave me some antidepressants to help lower my voice. When I get excited, I get very hyper. I started being given medicines. They are mood stabilizing medicines. They help stabilize my moods so that I don't get over the top or to go really low. Because I was warned by my psychiatrist that if I was ever to go low, I might relapse back into depression. And I thank God that I'm never low. I'm always high. Because like in my family, whenever I talk loudly, my mom does not like it. She used to shush me. I also faced stigmatization one day when I was going to apply for a job. I was recommended for a job by a classmate of mine at Nature Kenya near a museum. I went there and I was excited, obviously. And since my voice goes up when I'm excited, I was talking really loudly when I was there. And that cost me the job. My church people understand me because they were there with me when I was seriously ill. Back when I had depression. They were there with me so they understand me. The society really stigmatizes me. Because like people around here, the motorcycle riders around here, they call me crazy when I nikipitanga hapa naitanga cheesy. I just thrive in public spaces. So now that they're in that public space of bipolar heroes, it's good interacting with them. It helps. We have to figure things out when you're together. Because you're all birds of the same feather. Yes. Currently I'm not under insurance. Because I used to use my mom's card through her work. I was insured through my mom's job. But now that I turned 27, I was told that I'm over limit, I'm over age for insurance. That's why I went and signed up for NHIF. Actually, I remember I signed up for NHIF while I was doing an internship there. I signed myself up for NHIF. So I just went to get my number.
Okay, so let's understand bipolar disorder much further, and to help us do so is Dr. Boniface Chitai, consultant psychiatrist, and of course the Honorable Rachel Shabash, who is the Chief Administrative Secretary, that is the CAS of the Ministry of Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs, and for purposes of this conversation, she's actually living with bipolar disorder. Thank you for making time. Now I'll start off with you, Daktari. We know it is a mental health condition that causes extreme mood swings that include emotional highs and lows. Why and what causes this?
Remember that all mental illnesses sort of tend to affect our thinking, our mood, and our behavior. However, bipolar itself is a disorder of a person's mood. You remember that our brain is one of the most important organs that makes us humans, with nearly 10 billion cells that communicate with each other. So the medium of communicating is through substances that are called neurotransmitters. So, so the most important neurotransmitters, we have what we call serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. So in certain conditions, these neurotransmitters could be high or low. So for example, in the case of bipolar mood disorder, some of these neurotransmitters are elevated within the brain, and the causes are usually many factors, meaning that there could be some genetic component to it, there could be some injury to the brain to it, and of course these factors these factors, together with some psychological and social factors, can lead to a person getting bipolar mood disorder. But again, just to mention that in bipolar mood disorder, a person gets highs and related behavior, such as not needing to sleep, for example, being involved in a lot of activities, sometimes not to the end, but halfway, maybe not completing the activities, and the person could also be more talkative, and sometimes they could even be more generous to the extent that it hurts them, you know. So someone could actually just give out their money like that, you know, and at the end of the day, after that period is over of being very high, they could then regret. But then the other extreme is the depression. So also going through periods when you simply feel depressed and you have no interest in life and your mood is very low and you feel hopeless and you feel suicidal and you feel guilty, so you are just low. And you don't have appetite, and also maybe you can't sleep. So the typical symptoms of depression. So a person goes through, and they don't necessarily occur at the same time. So it's not like the mood swings of a daily mood swing where in the morning you are happy and in the evening you are sad. You could go through a period of being extremely happy for a number of days, and then you may have some number of days or even weeks where you are very sad. A lot of times the sadness usually is more than the highs. So a person will most likely experience the depressive episodes.
Okay, so that's the definition of the mania and the depression episodes in bipolar disorder. So they say the disorder can occur at any age, typically diagnosed in the teenage years or early 20s. Rachel, for you, when was this diagnosed?
Late 20s, early 30s.
And what were the loud symptoms for you?
I didn't know that I had any symptoms, but my husband noticed. And up to today, I think if my husband had not intervened, I would be living like many other people who have bipolar, who just look like they talk too much at one point and then they disappear at another point. I mean, people think it's normal. Even you with bipolar, if you've not been diagnosed, you think it's normal to be very happy at one time and very sad at another. But then if there's a good, if you're lucky, let me say, if you're lucky, because sometimes it's just luck, to have somebody who can say, listen, I think there is an issue, then you realize people who, when they are happy, normal people, when they are happy to a level. And when they are sad to a certain level. But you don't know, you don't have both, you don't have the capacity to deal with your happiness or your sadness like a normal person. But also, I say this, that bipolar also runs in our family, so it's in our genes. And that's one thing families just have to accept. And when you see families embarrassed about having somebody with mental health in their midst, it's sad, because they would better embrace it, because it could come in another generation or second generation of somebody still in the family. It's like alcoholism, which is also in the genes.
Right. Yes. Okay, so when you say it runs in the family, none of the family members pinpointed that our sister, our auntie perhaps is like somebody else we know in the family?
They did. I mean, eventually when I went for my diagnosis and I started getting treatment, everybody else in my family immediate family, and extended on the side of my, not my husband's side, our family side. We opened up. As a family, we meet every New Year and any other whatever times that we can meet as a family. We've always now discussed mental health, because within our family there are those with mental health who didn't get the help at the right time. So we were too late for some members of our family, but now we are very aware and we will not be late for any other member.
I hear you. Now, Dr. Chitai, we said that age group, teenage, early 20s. Why that bracket?
You know, she's absolutely right that, you know, there's an element of genetics, but mental illnesses are actually present in nearly all families. It could be an issue of alcoholism, it could be an issue of depression, it could be an issue of bipolar, it could be an issue of maybe obsessive. As I said, mental illnesses are also very many. It could be an issue of anxiety. With regard to why the age of 20s, it's important to say that most mental illnesses actually begin early in life. So that half of all mental illnesses begin by age of 14. And these severe mental illnesses, whether you're talking about schizophrenia or bipolar, mood disorder, they start from late adolescence, you know, to early adulthood. It's important to note that this timing, when it occurs, they're usually what we call precipitating factors. So someone may be going through certain challenges in their life. That's when it precipitates. It means, okay, there was some risk, you know, previously. Probably you carried some genetic risk, you know. Probably, let me say, my parents have bipolar, and then I'm carrying that risk. Or if it's depression, I'm carrying that risk. But then it will need also some stressors that precipitate it. These stressors can vary from person to person, and not everyone needs a stressor. In some people, it just develops. But it could be issues of exam, for example. It could be issues of loss of relationship, a significant other. It could be loss of money. It could be, for some young people, drugs are the ones that precipitate these conditions. So, but as you realize that also these are the ages when young people go through a lot of stress.
Let's take a short break, and when we come back, more on bipolar disorder. Thank you for staying with Health Diary. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Today the conversation, bipolar disorder, still joined by Dr. Boniface Chitai, who is a consultant psychiatrist, and of course Honorable Rachel Shabesh, who is the CAS at the Youth and Gender Affairs Ministry. So let's go back to the episodes. We talk about the manic episodes, which have the high energy of people being over generous, being overactive. How do they manifest in your case, Rachel?
Now that I look at it all the time, when it happens, total chaos. I give out a lot of money when I am manic, when people kind of have now known. So they just wait for me to, they just wait to see, you know. For long, people took advantage of it. I was not aware of it, but I just thought I was being generous. But it is generosity leading almost to stupidity, to the point where you want to take care of everybody's lives, even total strangers. It's not positive as you'd think, that I'm a generous person. No. You can even go and take a loan in a bank just to please somebody with money. And then the talking, excessive talking, or, you know, too many thoughts, rapid thoughts in your head, too many great ideas. And when I say great, I mean great ideas, because bipolars have great ideas. And then this feeling of I can say anything. And therefore, people, I was telling Dr. earlier, people tell me, we love you, Shabesh, because you talk frankly. You say what you mean. That's why we love you. People stop me on the streets. Women tell me that, and the truth is that sometimes when you speak fearlessly and truthfully, it might not be tactful and it might not be the right thing to say at that time. Somebody else will be able to think through that. You will already have blurted it out. And the moment you do it, you go back into yourself and start thinking what will be the impact. Then you start getting your anxiety, then you're in a panic mode, and then people wonder, I thought we told her it was okay. Then you go back yourself and rethink it. Then you start entering into the depressive state, and that I call trigger. I don't know whether that's what you're calling the
precipitating factors.
I have triggers. And my biggest win on my bipolar is managing my triggers. It's my biggest win. And that's why I see a psychotherapist. My psychiatrist manages my medicine and my levels, but my psychotherapist manages my way of thinking, my way of interacting, my making myself aware of my triggers, knowing definitely I am going to the stage of the being overgenerous. Now I am not.
Okay.
I am not as generous as I used to be. So those are literally, I think, also the issue of triggers for me. If the families could see and be told what a trigger is for somebody with bipolar disorder, I think they would be more equipped and skilled to help that family member.
All right, Chita, let me take you back and reiterate on what causes the major shift. She's talked about her journey and how those shifts happen or what triggers the shifts. Mostly, what have you seen as a trigger?
Stressors determine a person's mental health. So the more stressors an individual have and the more severe they are, the more worse their mental health becomes. And that is talking generally. For example, due to COVID-19 pandemic, people generally have tended to panic and have anxiety. And therefore, the mental health of nearly everyone has sort of deteriorated, all right? So if you're in a position where probably you are already diagnosed, with a mental health, maybe depression, during such times when there is general stress, you can actually get into a state, into a relapse. But again, also things like lack of sleep. So if you lack sleep, that itself can actually trigger a person to get a relapse of an issue like mania. Then now we just have things like substances, whether it's alcohol, whether it is cannabis, whether it is other drugs, they can also trigger somebody. But also the social factors. So if you have any of these conditions and you are in a family environment where people are highly critical of your behavior, then that itself can cause a person to relapse into the illness. So there are all these factors, and plus you can talk about compliance to medication and so on.
Okay, now when we talk about the misdiagnosis or diagnosis of this condition, some people say they lived almost all their lives without knowing they had the condition, because most often than not, you go to hospital when you're in the depressive state. So it is termed something else, because most people never go to see the doctor when they're happy. So in terms of diagnosis, when did it actually get to a point where now they could tell the difference?
I told you my husband reached out. It's my husband who saw there was a problem. And the fact that it was my husband and it came from a place of love and not criticism, I said, okay, fine, if I have this thing, I don't know what you're calling it, let's look for the doctor.
So what did he see?
He saw the different mood swings, and it was making our lives a misery and his life a misery. Because, everybody knows me now as somebody who is active, speaks, talks a lot, as you've said, and all that. And then very quickly, in a day, even on the same day, I have gone to this other state. So it's confusing for anybody, leave alone me, to be confusing for everybody. So when we did get the psychiatrist and we went through the process, I can tell you, for me, one of the greatest breakthroughs for somebody with bipolar is when they're diagnosed and they accept the diagnosis. Because you will be treated for many things: headaches, tension on my neck, aches, pains, anxiety, sweats, insomnia. You will see doctor after doctor of a general doctor for very long. The moment a doctor says, would you consider if I could refer you to a psychiatrist? If that process happens, you've saved a life. You've saved a life. Because even for a general doctor to tell their patient, I think your issue is related to mental health, your stress, your whatever, many people will not accept. They will say, you give me medicine for my headache and my tension, as we don't have problems in our, as we are not mad people. You know, I'm not a mad person. And I feel for doctors, because I've been giving my story in terms of psychiatrists and saying, I was diagnosed when I was as a member of parliament. There was no doctor on the insurance of Bunge until the day I was diagnosed. So I always like telling people, psychiatrists who are trained to deal with human beings, not trees and not stones. We cannot have a doctor trained if really there is no mental health. So I repeat, diagnosis and acceptance of that diagnosis is the beginning of a new life for anybody who has mental health issues.
Dr. Chitai, so what should healthcare providers look out for to distinguish, you know, your normal ailment and bipolar disorder?
And I like what Mheshimiwa said, that psychiatrists are trained to deal with human beings. Actually, there are no animal psychiatrists.
Yeah.
I think it's important that also health workers in general are sensitized about mental health. Sometimes the training is not deep, because if it's doctors, they begin as they're trained in medicine, surgery, and we learn psychiatry at the first level of training, but then people don't spend a lot of time rotating in psychiatry, so they may not have even a lot of knowledge, but they can pick out the conditions. You know, there's what we call high index of suspicion. One clear sign that probably you may not be dealing with a medical, a physical condition, yeah, is if the patient in front of you has been to many doctors, okay, with the same complaint, they have done a lot of tests, or you've done your tests yourself, and you find that there's no, they're all turning negative, and yet the symptom is still there. If it's headache, it's still there. But again, overall, I think there needs to be continued sensitization of health workers, be it doctors, nurses, clinical officers. You know, any health provider needs continuing sensitization about mental health, for this reason, that mental disorders are very common, both within our population at home, very common, but also more common in the hospitals. That about 25% of all patients coming to our hospitals are suffering from some mental disorder.
On that note, you've had Honorable Rachel talk about acceptance being so critical in the journey of living with bipolar disorder, but the biggest obstacle to the same is stigma. In the next episode, we talk more about that and also hear from her in as far as the losses she's had to incur because of this disorder. But for now, here now is the health tip.
Flexology is a zone therapy where you work on the palms, the feet, the face, and the ears. So the benefits are it helps in distribution of energy throughout the body. It helps with anxiety, helps in improving sleeping patterns, especially for the insomnia patients, increased circulation, and it helps reducing pain.
Thank you so much for engaging with us, even as we learned more about bipolar disorder and heard from those who live with this reality. Of course, if you would like to reach the Honorable Shabesh for any of your questions and support, as she said, she is available and you can reach her on her social media platforms. And from us here at Health Diary, my name is Gladys Gachanja, and today we've been coming to you from the Parking by Radisson here in Westlands. See you. Oh yeah, to go out. Now, if there's one condition that is highly or comments, you can also